"Get out of my pool, you don't belong here," screams the woman in designer swimwear at the black man who owns the house. The security guard is already reaching for his radio. In the next 5 minutes, her entire world will collapse as she discovers who she's really messing with. For Marcus Johnson, retired police captain with 30 years of dealing with entitled people like her, this isn't just another case of mistaken identity. It's about to become the most satisfying lesson in justice he's ever delivered. The camera catches the exact moment, her perfectly made-up face freezing in horror as 2 uniformed officers bypass her completely, rushing to embrace the very man she just reported as a suspicious trespasser. "Captain Johnson, sir!" "It's an honor," one officer says, saluting him while completely ignoring her trembling presence. Watch how one peaceful Sunday in America's most exclusive gated community transforms into a viral moment of reckoning when prejudice meets its perfect counter: patience, power, and irrefutable proof that will leave you cheering out loud. The entitlement ends today. The blazing summer sun beat down as Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, hearing unfamiliar voices and splashing from his private sanctuary. What awaited him beyond that gate would expose something far darker than simple trespassing. Palm breeze. Gardens isn't just any gated community, it's where the top 1% of the city comes to live in carefully curated exclusivity. Security guards patrol 24/7, pristine tennis courts shimmer in the distance, and community rules are enforced with religious fervor. 2 Olympic-sized community pools sparkle in the common areas, crowded today with weekend revelers seeking relief from the July heat. But only a handful of the most expensive properties boast their own private pools, Marcus Johnson's Spanish-style villa being one of them. His backyard sanctuary sits hidden behind mature palm trees and privacy hedges, on the crystal-clear water of his custom-designed pool, normally disturbed only by his daily morning swim. At 55, Marcus carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who spent decades commanding respect. His salt and pepper hair, and the subtle limp from an old line-of-duty injury, tell stories his modest demeanor never would. Since moving in 3 months ago, he's kept to himself, politely declining invitations to community mixers and fundraisers. His walls display framed medals and photographs with city officials, mementos from a distinguished career kept private from nosy neighbors. Meanwhile, Stephanie Wells rules Palm Breeze Gardens with manicured iron fists. As president of the Homeowners Association, the 42-year-old former beauty queen has made it her mission to maintain the community's standards. Her text alerts about improper garbage bin placement and unauthorized garden gnomes are legendary. Today, she's surrounded by her usual entourage, 3 socialite friends who hang on her every pronouncement as if receiving divine wisdom. The power dynamic at Palm Breeze is immediately apparent to any visitor. Stephanie holds court at every function while residents like Marcus receive sidelong glances whenever they use communal facilities. When Marcus attended the annual garden party last month, whispers followed him. How did he afford a premium lot? Is he some athlete? Does he really belong here? Rules. At Palm Breeze seem strangely elastic, bending generously for some while, becoming rigid barriers for others. Marcus has noticed how security scrutinizes his guests, while waving through others without a second glance. The community newsletter features the same rotating cast of faces, none resembling his own. Now, returning from his morning run, Marcus slows his pace as the unexpected sounds of splashing and laughter drift from behind his privacy gate. The security code panel shows signs of tampering. His trained eye notices immediately someone has forced their way into his property, but who would dare? And why his home specifically? Marcus's hand hesitates on the gate latch, years of tactical training kicking in. He takes a controlled breath, squares his shoulders, and pushes open the heavy wooden door to his backyard. The scene that greets him is surreal. Stephanie Wells reclines on his custom lounge chair, designer sunglasses perched on her nose, martini in hand. 3 of her friends splash in his pool, an expensive Bluetooth speaker blaring music from his patio. Coolers and bags are scattered across his carefully tended garden space. They've completely taken over. For a moment, and they don't notice him. Then Stephanie lowers her sunglasses, looking at Marcus's sweat-soaked running clothes with undisguised contempt. "Finally, we've been waiting for service for almost an hour," she calls out, gesturing vaguely toward the empty glasses on the side table. "That we need fresh towels, and someone should refill the ice bucket." Marcus blinks, momentarily stunned into silence. His hands unconsciously clench into fists before relaxing again. A control technique learned through decades of tense confrontations. "Yeah, ma'am. I'm Marcus Johnson. This is my private home and pool. I'm going to have to ask you all to leave immediately." Laughter erupts from the pool as Stephanie's eyebrows shoot up in mock surprise. "Oh, sweetie, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. This area is part of the premium amenities package. Members-only pool access." She waves a laminated card. "Perhaps you're confused about which property you're maintaining today." The camera zooms slowly into Marcus's face as he processes this, contrasting with quick cuts to Stephanie's smug expression. When he reaches for his wallet, the worn police badge is briefly visible inside, unnoticed by the trespassers but clearly shown to viewers. "I am the owner of 347 Palmetto Lane," he states calmly, voice carrying the quiet authority that once commanded an entire precinct. "This is private property. You are trespassing." Stephanie's expression hardens as she sits upright. "That's impossible. This property was purchased by a—" She stops herself, eyes narrowing. The unspoken word hangs in the air between them. "By a what, Miss Wells?" Marcus asks quietly. Instead of answering, Stephanie snatches her phone. "I'm calling security. We clearly have an intruder situation." Her friends have gone, silent, exchanging uncomfortable glances. "Go ahead," Marcus encourages, his calm demeanor unmoved. The silence is broken by one of Stephanie's friends, whispering loudly, "How did someone like him even afford a place here?" Another friend, emboldened by Stephanie's confidence, deliberately knocks over his drink beside the pool. "Oops," he says with a smirk. "Looks like you've got some cleaning up to do." When security arrives, the guard, a young man barely in his 20s, approaches Marcus first. "Sir, can I see some identification? We've had a report of an unauthorized EO." "Individual." The tension reaches its peak as neighbors begin peering over fences, drawn by the commotion. Stephanie stands triumphantly, already dictating how the incident should be recorded for the HOA Violations Committee. That's when Marcus allows himself the slightest smile, almost imperceptible, and pulls out his phone. "Since we can't seem to resolve this amicably, I believe it's time to call in someone who can settle this matter definitively." He dials a number from memory, his expression shifting subtly from resignation to something else entirely. Anticipation. "Officer Washington, please." Marcus speaks into the phone, his voice shifting into the crisp, authoritative tone of command. "Tell him it's Captain Johnson." "Yes, I'll hold." The security guard's demeanor changes instantly. His eyes dart from Marcus's face to the phone and back again, pieces of a puzzle suddenly connecting. "Sir, did you say Captain Johnson?" he asks, lowering his clipboard slightly. Marcus doesn't answer him directly, instead addressing the intruders. "I've been patient. I've asked politely. I'm now giving you one final opportunity to leave my property before this becomes a formal criminal trespassing incident." One of Stephanie's friends begins gathering her belongings, murmuring about a forgotten appointment. Another looks increasingly uncomfortable, edging toward the gate. But Stephanie stands her ground, manicured hand planted firmly on her hip. "This is ridiculous. You have absolutely no authority here. My husband sits on the city council's legal committee. He'll have this sorted out with one phone call." Her voice carries less conviction now, a barely perceptible tremor undermining her words. In the distance, The distinctive sound of an approaching police siren cuts through the afternoon heat. Marcus's posture subtly shifts, shoulders straightening, chin lifting slightly, the transformation from civilian to authority figure happening before their eyes. The security guard steps back, moving closer to Marcus. "Ma'am, I've just checked the property records on our system. This address is indeed registered to a Marcus Johnson. Private property, not community access." "That's impossible," Stephanie snaps, but doubt clouds her expression. The police siren grows louder, then cuts off abruptly. Car doors slam in the distance. Marcus remains perfectly still. The calmness of someone who knows exactly how this will end. "You really have no idea who I am, do you?" Marcus asks, not unkindly. Stephanie's eyes narrow to defensive slits. "I know exactly who you are. Someone who doesn't belong here. Someone who needs to be reminded of their place." The gate squeaks open. Officer Nate Washington appears, uniform crisp, expression unreadable. He surveys the scene methodically, taking in the trespassers, the security guard, and finally, Marcus. Stephanie's face brightens with vindication. "Officer, thank goodness you're here. This man is harassing us and claiming this community property belongs to him. We were just enjoying our members-only facilities when..." Officer Washington walks past her mid-sentence, as if she's completely invisible. His serious expression breaks into a broad smile as he approaches Marcus. "Captain Johnson," Officer Washington exclaims, extending his hand for a firm shake that transforms into a quick, warm embrace. "Sir, it's been what? 8 months since your retirement ceremony." The silence that follows is deafening. Stephanie's mouth hangs slightly open, her expression cycling rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and the first flickers of genuine alarm. "Nate," Marcus returns, warmly, "thanks for coming by. Seems we have a misunderstanding about property boundaries." Officer Washington turns, finally acknowledging the others present. "I'm Officer Washington. I had the privilege of serving under Captain Johnson for 12 years in the department's Elite Crimes Division." His emphasis on Marcus's title is unmistakable. "The captain here was my superior officer and mentor. Best commander the force ever had." Stephanie's friends have backed themselves almost to the gate now, handbags clutched protectively against their chests. One whispers urgently into her phone, eyes downcast. "Sir," Officer Washington continues, "you mentioned a trespassing situation." Marcus nods slowly. "Found these folks using my private pool when I returned from my run. They seem convinced it's community property despite the fence, security gate, and private property signs." Officer Washington raises an eyebrow, turning to Stephanie. "Ma'am, are you aware that trespassing on private property is a criminal offense in this state?" Stephanie's composure cracks further. "There's been a mistake. I'm the HOA president. This area was designated as..." She fumbles in her bag for paperwork that doesn't exist. One of her retreating friends calls out, "Stephanie, you told us you had permission from the owner." The accusation hangs in the air as Stephanie's face flushes crimson. I thought this was the VIP community pool section. The property maps must be outdated." Officer Washington pulls out his phone, displaying a digital map of Palm Breeze Gardens. According to county records, 347 Palmetto Lane is a private residence owned by Marcus Johnson, purchased 3 months ago. He looks pointedly at the "No Trespassing" sign partially hidden behind a potted palm. "But that can't..." Stephanie begins, then stops herself. Her eyes dart to Marcus's left bicep, where the edge of a police academy tattoo is just visible beneath his sleeve. Recognition dawns slowly on her face. While this exchange unfolds, a second police cruiser pulls up. Officer Washington's partner, Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, approaches with a manila folder tucked under her arm. She nods respectfully to Marcus before handing the folder to Washington. "Captain Johnson," Washington says, a hint of humor in his voice. In my experience, people who are quick to call authorities on others often have interesting histories themselves. I wonder what we might find if we looked into Ms. Wells, Marcus supplies. Stephanie Wells, HOA president. Washington accepts the folder from Rodriguez, flipping it open. Like these 6 noise complaints against your weekend gatherings. Or these unauthorized landscaping modifications to the community green space adjacent to your property. All filed by various neighbors over the past 6 months. Stephanie's remaining friend takes this opportunity to mumble an excuse and slip out the gate, leaving her completely alone. Those are minor administrative matters, Stephanie stammers, her voice now barely above a whisper. Marcus steps forward, offering something unexpected, a clean towel. You might want to dry off before you leave. The walk back to your place can be quite hot this time of day. The simple act of dignity amidst her humiliation creates a powerful contrast. Stephanie takes the towel with trembling fingers. All pretense of authority completely evaporated. People like you shouldn't, she begins in a last desperate attempt to regain control. People like me, Marcus interrupts gently, spent 30 years upholding the law. What exactly did you mean by that, Ms. Wells? Officer Washington clears his throat, timing his interruption perfectly. For the record, Ms. H. Wells, Captain Johnson isn't just any retired officer. He opens the folder wider. He commanded, the Property Crimes Division for 15 years, specialized in real estate fraud and illegal occupancy cases. Stephanie clutches her towel tighter. That's irrelevant to today's misunderstanding. Is it? Sergeant Rodriguez interjects. Because Captain Johnson was honored just last month by the mayor himself. Ceremony made every local paper and TV station. Full-page coverage, sir, she adds, looking at Marcus with admiration. Well, your photograph was displayed all over the city? The implication is clear. Stephanie should have recognized him. The ripple of this revelation spreads visibly across her face. Washington flips to another page in the folder. Even more. Interesting. Captain Johnson specifically purchased this property after leading the investigation into the Palm Heights real estate scheme last year. Marcus steps forward. Your case where certain connected individuals were selling access to private properties when owners were away. His eyes meet Stephanie's directly. Properties like this one, which previously belonged to James Thornton. Stephanie goes completely pale. Thornton? Your husband's former business partner, Marcus confirms. Small world, isn't it? The camera cuts to Stephanie's hands, now visibly shaking. I recognized you the day I moved in, Ms. Wells. Marcus continues. Quietly. You were a person of interest in an unrelated case 5 years ago. Not charged, but interviewed extensively. More neighbors have gathered outside the gate, drawn by the police presence. The security guard, now fully aligned with Marcus, politely keeps them at bay while ensuring they can see Stephanie's disgrace. Captain, Sergeant Rodriguez calls, holding up her tablet. The security footage you installed last month captured everything today. She swipes through several images. Also shows Mrs. Wells using your pool 3 separate times during your weekend visits to your daughter's place. Officer Washington studies the footage. And it appears she was charging other residents for access to what she called the exclusive VIP pool area. We've identified several Venmo transactions. This final revelation lands like a thunderclap. A neighbor gasps audibly from beyond. The gate. Stephanie looks as though she might collapse. All artifice of authority completely shattered. Marcus looks at her not with anger, but with something more devastating. Pity. In 30 years of law enforcement, I learned one crucial lesson, Mrs. Wells. Never assume you know someone's story by looking at them. Never assume you have authority where you don't. And never, ever assume you can invade someone's privacy without consequences. The poolside falls silent, except for the gentle lapping of water against tile. Even the birds seem to have paused their afternoon songs. I moved here for peace and quiet after decades of service, Marcus continues, his voice softer now. All I wanted was a place where I could swim without looking over my shoulder. A place that was undeniably mine. The weariness in his voice speaks volumes about what it took to earn that simple dignity. Washington closes the folder with a snap that makes Stephanie jump. Ms. Wells, you have a choice. We can process formal charges for criminal trespassing, property damage, and potentially fraud if we investigate those pool access payments further. Or, he looks to Marcus, who nods almost imperceptibly. Or, Washington continues, you can leave immediately, make full restitution for any damages, and issue a formal apology to Captain Johnson at the next HOA meeting. 3 days. Later, Marcus sits on his patio, watching the sunset paint his pool in shades of amber and gold. The community has transformed around him. Neighbors who previously avoided eye contact now stop to introduce themselves, offering genuine smiles and invitations. Inside his home, a stack of handwritten apology notes sits unopened. The HOA has sent an official letter removing Stephanie from her position as president-y, pending a community vote on her replacement. 3 different neighbors have nominated Marcus, despite his polite refusals. I didn't come here to lead, he explained to Mrs. Patel from across the street. I came here to rest. A tentative knock at his gate interrupts his solitude. Marcus checks his security camera to find Stephanie Wells standing alone, posture diminished, designer handbag replaced by a simple tote. He buzzes her in. Captain Johnson, she begins, voice barely audible. I came to apologize personally. Marcus gestures to a chair across from him. Would you like some iced tea? The simple offer of hospitality from a man she'd humiliated in the very space she'd invaded brings unexpected tears to her eyes. After everything I said, everything I implied, she stammers. Ms. Wells, Marcus interrupts, gently. I've spent my life dealing with people on their worst days. I've learned that most poor behavior comes from fear or insecurity, not inherent cruelty. He looks out over his pool, now peaceful in the fading light. Do you know why I bought this specific house? Stephanie shakes her head. As a child, I was removed from a public pool for being in the wrong section. No explanation given. I swore that someday I'd have a place where no one could tell me I didn't belong. He smiles faintly. Ironic how that turned out. In this vulnerable moment, Marcus reveals something unexpected. I was actually planning to open my pool to the community children once a week. After decades seeing the worst of humanity, I wanted to create a space where kids could just be happy. This simple admission breaks something in Stephanie. Genuine tears, not of self-pity but of shame, spill down her cheeks. The committee is creating a more fair system for all amenities, she offers. No more unofficial VIP areas. Marcus nods appreciatively. Progress begins with small changes. As the sun disappears completely, they sit in companionable silence, 2 people finding unexpected common ground in the aftermath of conflict. 2 weeks later, Marcus's backyard hosts a diverse group of neighbors for a community barbecue. Children splash happily in the pool under the watchful eyes of parents who now greet Marcus as a friend. Officer Washington flips burgers at the grill, laughing with Sergeant Rodriguez. In a quiet corner, Marcus notices Stephanie tentatively, entering through the gate, bearing a homemade dish. He walks over, welcoming her with a dignified nod. Justice isn't just about determining who's right or wrong, he says, taking her offering. Sometimes it's about restoring balance and humanity, even in the most unlikely situations. This story of Marcus and Stephanie forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. Have you ever been judged unfairly based solely on your appearance? How did you respond? The power to transform conflict into understanding lies within each of us. It doesn't require a badge or legal authority, just the courage to stand your ground with dignity and the wisdom to offer redemption when you could instead seek revenge? For more powerful stories of justice and redemption, check out our series, Moment of Reckoning, when prejudice meets its match, including last week's viral video, Karen versus Black Store Manager. What security cameras captured stunned everyone. Next week, we'll share an exclusive follow-up on how Palm Breeze Gardens transformed its community governance after this incident, featuring interviews with residents whose lives changed forever. Join our community discussion about creating more respectful spaces for everyone. The conversation has just begun. Don't miss what happens next.